It was just another slow afternoon at the local gun store. The place smelled faintly of gun oil and coffee, and the walls were lined with rifles that gleamed under the bright lights. A group of guys hung around the counter, swapping jokes and stories about their latest trips to the shooting range. That's when the door opened, and in walked a young woman in a faded hoodie, her backpack slung loosely over one shoulder. She didn't look like the kind of person who spent much time in a gun store. The moment she stepped inside, the laughter quieted just for a second before one of the guys cracked a grin. "You lost?" he asked, and his friends chuckled. She ignored them and walked toward the counter, scanning the wall of firearms like she was looking for something specific. That's when the teasing started. "Go play with water guns," one of them said, pointing at her with a smirk. His friends burst out laughing again, convinced she had no idea what she was doing there. She didn't fire back with words. She just raised an eyebrow, her expression calm, almost bored, and pointed to the shooting range in the back. The store clerk hesitated, then shrugged and handed her the paperwork. A few minutes later, she was walking into the range, the guys trailing behind to watch the show. They were still laughing when she set her backpack down and unzipped it. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was a sleek, customized rifle, one they instantly recognized as serious gear. She didn't say a word as she loaded a single round, adjusted the scope, and lined up her shot at a target set 200 meters away. The guys watched, smirking, certain she'd miss. The store went quiet for a moment, the air filled only with the soft click of her adjusting her aim. Then she took the shot. A sharp crack echoed through the range. Something tiny and metallic clinked against the concrete floor. The men leaned forward, their expressions changing as they realized what had just happened, and when the target was brought back. That's when everything changed. The range officer picked up the target, eyes widening as he held it up for everyone to see. In the dead center of the bullseye was a perfectly round hole, no tears, no splintering. The kind of shot you only read about. But what really caught everyone's attention was the coin taped to the middle. It had been split clean in half. The room stayed silent for a moment, the earlier laughter gone. The guys who had been joking now stood with their arms crossed, glancing at each other like they weren't sure what to say. The man who had told her to go play with water guns tried to smile it off, but it came out awkward, forced. "Lucky shot," he muttered. She didn't answer. Instead, she carefully set the rifle back in its case, her movements slow and deliberate, as if she'd done this 1,000 times. The way she handled it was different, no fumbling, no second-guessing. Every motion was precise. The clerk, still staring at the target, finally asked the question everyone else was thinking. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" She looked up, meeting his eyes, but didn't speak right away. There was a flicker of something in her expression, a memory, maybe. She zipped her bag, swung it over her shoulder, and finally said, "Long story." It wasn't the kind of answer that satisfied anyone, but it wasn't the kind that invited more questions either. Still, the air in the room felt different now. The group of men didn't laugh as she walked past them toward the door. One of them took a small step forward, as if to stop her, but hesitated. The coin pieces lay on the counter, catching the light. Nobody picked them up. They just sat there, a silent reminder that whoever she wasn't someone to underestimate. And the strange thing was, no one even knew her name. The door swung shut behind her. And for a moment, the only sound in the store was the faint hum of the lights. The men exchanged glances, each one silently wondering the same thing. How could someone like her pull off a shot like that? She didn't look like a competitive shooter. She wasn't carrying herself like someone trying to show off. If anything, it seemed like she was trying not to be noticed. One of the younger guys finally broke the silence. "You think she's military?" he whispered. The others shook their heads. There was no uniform, no patches, no visible signs of service. still. The way she'd handled that rifle, it was hard to ignore. In the parking lot, she walked toward an old, dusty pickup parked in the far corner, away from the other vehicles. She moved with quiet confidence, like someone used to watching her surroundings. Inside the cab, a small duffel bag sat on the passenger seat, its zipper just slightly open, revealing a glimpse of more gear. Back in the store, the clerk was still staring at the target, turning it over in his hands. He knew shooters who had trained for years and couldn't make a shot like that. Something about it didn't sit right. It was too clean, too perfect. "Should we follow her?" one of the guys asked half-jokingly, but no one laughed. They all wanted to know more, but there was something in the air, a sense that pushing too far might not be a good idea. Through the large front window, they could see her truck pulling out of the lot. She didn't look back. In seconds, she was gone, leaving only questions behind. And for the first time in a long while, the gun store felt strangely quiet, almost like it was holding its breath. Rain had started to fall by the time her truck reached the edge of town, the wipers dragging slowly across the windshield. She kept her eyes on the road, but her mind was elsewhere. The shot she'd taken back at the store had drawn more attention than she wanted, and she knew it. People talked in places like that, and word traveled fast. Back at the gun store, the group of men hadn't let the moment go. They stood in a tight circle, voices low, their curiosity feeding off each other. One of them swore he'd seen her face before, maybe in an old news article or a competition photo online. Another shook his head, insisting she wasn't the type to seek fame. The mystery only made them more restless. The clerk picked up the coin pieces again, running his thumb along the perfect split. It wasn't luck. Luck didn't leave a cut that clean at 200 meters. Whoever she was, she had years of training, maybe more than any of them could imagine. He found himself glancing toward the rain-streaked window, half expecting her to walk back in. Miles away, she pulled off onto a narrow dirt road that disappeared into the woods. The sound of the rain softened under the trees. She parked near a clearing and stepped out, the wet ground crunching under her boots. From the back of the truck, she lifted her rifle case, not the same one from the store, but another, older one, with scratches and faded stickers along the sides. She set up quietly, her movements smooth and practiced. Somewhere in the distance, faint echoes of gunfire carried through the mist, followed by the deep rumble of thunder. She adjusted her scope, eyes narrowing. Whatever was coming, she had been preparing for it long before anyone at that store had laughed at her. And now it was closer than ever. A sudden snap of a twig made her freeze. The sound wasn't from wildlife. It was too deliberate, too close. She didn't turn right away, instead keeping her eye to the scope, scanning the distant tree line. Another sound followed, the faint crunch of boots on wet leaves. Whoever it was, they were trying to be quiet, but not quiet enough for her trained ears. She lowered the rifle slowly, her grip tightening on the stock. The rain had eased into a mist, and through the fog she caught a glimpse of movement shadows weaving between the trees. One figure, then another. They weren't hunters. Their pace was steady, their formation too purposeful. Back in town, the gun store clerk was on his phone, pulling up a local forum where someone had already posted about the girl who split a coin at 200 meters. The thread was buzzing with theories. Some claimed she was a retired champion shooter. Others whispered about law enforcement ties. But one post stood out. "If she's who I think she is, she's in trouble. Big trouble." The words sent a chill through him in the clearing. She adjusted her stance, angling herself so she could see both the tree line and the dirt road. The mist swirled, blurring the edges of the approaching figures, but she could make out the shape of their gear-black jackets, heavy boots, and something slung over their shoulders. They stopped just inside the shadows, watching her. Her heartbeat stayed steady, But her mind was already running through possibilities. These weren't random strangers. They'd tracked her here, and that meant only one thing: someone had been waiting for her to resurface. The silence between them stretched, heavy and tense, until one of the figures stepped forward into the light. She recognized him instantly, and her stomach tightened. This wasn't just about a coin shot anymore. This was about unfinished business. The man who stepped forward had the same confident smirk she remembered from years ago, though his eyes were colder now. "Didn't think I'd find you here," he said, his voice carrying easily through the damp air. The others stayed in the shadows, their hands resting casually near their weapons. She didn't answer, only raised the rifle slightly, not in a threat, but as a reminder. He chuckled, as if her aim was just another game to him. Still as sharp as ever, he said, "But this time, you're coming with us." The tension in the clearing was a living thing, wrapping around them like the mist. She took a slow step back, her boots sinking slightly into the wet earth. "Not going to happen," she replied, her voice steady. He signaled to his men, and they began to spread out, cutting off her path to the truck. Her mind worked quickly. There was no winning. In a straight,